Alright, so I'm hoping this video comes out because I have this GoPro strapped around my chest. And it's kind of weird. Anyways, you get to see my workbench, my messy area. That's where the magic happens. So anyways, here's my little jig that I know you guys already have. There is my my Metcal soldering station pen with my removable cartridges. 600 degrees, I believe, a matter of a couple of seconds. Anyways, whatever. So we're gonna learn how to properly solder some XT60s, but not only that, we're gonna use some heavy gauge wire here in my mess of wires that I have here. I know I have some 10 gauge stuff floating around. Here's some red. Here's a little negative. Let me see these. This is 12 gauge. Anyways, we're gonna use this regardless, just because I said so. So first thing I'm gonna do is lock my XT60 in place, and I guess the main purpose of this is just to show you technique, so this way you don't burn through the plastic. Now, tools to me are everything. This sucker is going to melt the solder down on that in a matter of seconds, and you know it's gonna be a quick and easy thing. But I gotta be honest with you, the main reason why this can happen is because of my tools. So hopefully you have the right stuff to do that, but here we go. So anyways, first thing I'll do is obviously mount that. There's a little bit of flux. I actually put the flux inside before I start. And you're gonna notice that some of this flux is gonna be popping out of that hole, but when it heats up, it starts frying. Whatever, I just leave it. So I'm gonna snip off a piece of the silicone tubing off of my wire here. Now obviously this hole, let me just show you another XT60. This hole is a little bit bigger than I'd like here. So what I would do, actually this one kind of fits pretty good, but if it was bigger, I would take the wire, I would snip it. So in essence, let's say this is 10 gauge. I would pull out half or whatever. I would take that, I would snip that much, and then twist the rest. But in this case, I don't need to do that because it seems to fit quite well. Now, my model with soldering is everything is in the flux. You control the flux, you control a beautiful solder. So I like to get generous with that. So there's a nice glob of flux on there. I would do the same for this here as well. Let me kick on my soldering station. My little fume extractor. It's pretty darn dirty. And before I try to get to the XT60, I'm going to put some solder on here. Excuse me. So, kind of how I do it. Get my roll, get a piece out like this, keep it nice and close, get a piece on my pen, put it on there, and now you see the direction of your twist. I would actually take my solder and go in the same direction so it's nice and smooth. Now that looks pretty good. If I wanted to get it a little bit tighter, all I have to do is take a little more flux, Put some more flux on there, and now I can control the solder a lot easier. Each time I want to reheat the solder, I want to have some flux on it so I have control of the solder. If it doesn't work for you, I'm sorry, if heating up the solder, just doesn't move the solder you want, move the solder in the direction that you want, then you need more flux. What'll happen a lot of times is you'll heat the solder up and you'll get these points, so it'll kind of drag and you'll get these like bubble points, and you won't get the the desired control of the solder that you'd like here. So here's a pretty good example of what we're looking for. Do the same thing on this guy. So again, my twist on the wire is going forward, so I'm gonna twist my wire backwards while I put some solder on my pen and get it distributed evenly. I don't have to go crazy, just a little bit will do, just to kind of get it covered. So now on to the XT60. So the XT60, what I like to do is I don't like to go crazy with putting a big amount of flux in here, but I will kind of fill this with flux beforehand, so just a little bit. See how I was telling you it's going to fry and pop? There it goes. So it's not completely filled, but it's enough because I still got solder on my wire here. So do the same thing for the other side. I'd recommend using safety glasses whenever you use these guys, because the flux has a tendency to pop the solder, and fry it off. So now you can see that we've got some decent fill. Normally I would have my heat shrink first. Don't forget your heat shrink goes on first, and then you would heat these up and set them in place. Again, flux. So now we have our solders done here and the wire, but we still want to have more flux because we need control of what's going on. So what I do is I heat the solder here a little bit, I'll heat the solder on the wire, and then I'll kind of try to do both at the same time. There you go. Bam, that's it. So now it's sitting in the hole perfectly, and that is just about perfect. That's what we want it to look like. Again, flux, heat that up, get that ready, heat up the wire, heat them both up at the same time. I would recommend heating the wire first because it's going to actually melt the solder on your XT60 controller, XT60 connector, to a temperature that you want without going through the plastic. You get too hot, you're going to go right through the plastic and ruin the connector. So there it is, it's set in place. That's about as perfect as you can get it. I mean, I could get a little bit more in detail and go a little closer if I wanted to, but that's how you would connect XT60s.